last few years, luxury goods have exploded in popularity and profitability. The pandemic brought an increase in spending across this sector, with LVMH, the company behind luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany & Company, as well as dozens of other companies, nearly doubling their stock price in a matter of a year. And of course, we can't forget the luxury car segment, which has morphed into an ever-growing market full of a wide variety of options in what feels like a growingly astronomical price range. Brands like Ferrari have increased their production by nearly 40% over the last decade, and more exotic automakers are offering a wider variety of vehicles in their lineup. For example, Lamborghini, which for an extremely long time only offered their V12 flagship model. For example, the Countach, Diablo, or Murcielago. Then in 2003, Lamborghini announced a new entry-level affordable Lamborghini, which was the Gallardo. This was meant as a way for vehicle owners to get their foot into the door of owning an exotic car with a more affordable price point, and it was pretty realistic to be able to buy a used Lamborghini Gallardo for around $100,000 to $120,000 for a really solid one, and if you wanted an older, higher mileage variant, you could find one for about $75,000. But even today, Lamborghini's most entry-level model, which is the Lamborghini Huracan, which replaced the Lamborghini Gallardo back in 2014, this car is quickly becoming more and more expensive, and as a result, it isn't really entry-level anymore, with one of the cheapest ones currently in the country being priced at $180,000 with 30,000 miles, which is pretty high mileage for an exotic car. These once extremely limited production, selective inventory cars are quickly being made up of a lineup of seven-figure vehicles. Again, using Lamborghini as an example, they currently have a pretty large varying lineup. From the Lamborghini Urus, which is their SUV variant, which starts in the mid-$200,000 range, all the way up to their special edition Lamborghini Countach, which starts at about $2.64 million. And it wasn't that long ago that the idea of buying $1 million car was borderline unthinkable. The Bugatti Veyron was the world's, or at least the general public's, introduction to the idea of $1 million car. Now, the Bugatti Veyron definitely wasn't the first car to be sold for $1 million, but it was the first one to enter the mainstream media and really popularize the idea of a car at this price point, as well as this new segment of vehicle known as the hypercar. At the time, $1 million hypercar was a one-off, extremely rare thing, but today they're becoming increasingly more and more common. For example, the Aston Martin Valkyrie, which starts at $3.5 million, the McLaren Senna, which starts at over $1 million, and the Bugatti Chiron, which starts at $3.3 million. And these are just to name a few. And to really drive home the fact that ultra high-end and exotic luxury vehicles have absolutely exploded over the last couple of years, look no further than an entirely new segment of vehicle, which is the exotic car SUV. In the last few years, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Maserati, and more have either introduced or announced SUV variations for their cars. And with the introduction of the exotic car SUV, exotic cars are no longer meant only for single people or couples who are wanting to use the car on date night or on the weekends. Now these cars truly can be daily driven vehicles for families. And this is having an extremely large impact into the growth of this segment of vehicles as a whole. In fact, from 2021 to 2022, the luxury goods market grew by 21%, the majority of that coming from luxury cars, with the luxury car market reaching $620 billion, and luxury personal goods being about half that at around $320 billion. And whenever we look at the growth of the automotive market, luxury or ultra high-end luxury is where most of the growth is expected to lie. According to a study released last year by McKinsey & Company, a consulting group out of New York, they found that the more expensive the car is, the more that segment will grow between now and 2031. You can see here that the sub-$80,000 or non-luxury segment, which makes up about 97 to 90% of the overall car market, is expected to only grow about 1% over the next 10 years. And truthfully, whenever an $80,000 car is no longer considered luxury, that's whenever you know that we have a problem. While on the opposite end of the spectrum, the $500,000 segment is expected to grow by a whopping 14%, and the other segments in between are expected to grow anywhere between 8 to 10%. This is after a nearly 35% growth in sales immediately after the pandemic by brands like Lamborghini, Bentley, and Ferrari. Now, the reason why we've seen such explosive growth within this segment of vehicles really does come down to a few different things. And the first reason is the selection of cars. Like I mentioned earlier, the adoption of the exotic or ultra high-end SUV has been a game changer for ultra luxury car markets, with the Lamborghini Urus starting at $230,000 for their standard model and starting at $264,000 for their Performante, which is their high performance edition, The Rolls-Royce Cullinan, which is basically a boat on wheels, has a starting price of $346,000, or the new Ferrari SUV, which is stated to be released as a 2024 year model, will cost just under $400,000. High-end luxury and exotic automakers are expanding in their vehicle selection, and thus they're expanding in their market share and their price point as well. Additionally is the customization of exotic and luxury cars. In that same McKinsey report that I mentioned earlier, it stated that 84% of Chinese luxury car buyers, which is the largest growing market for luxury cars, said that the ability to personalize their vehicle is extremely important, and that it actually takes priority over other features like driving performance, design, or battery range. This means that the ability to customize a vehicle exactly to your liking is not only important to the buyer because of their personal preferences, but it's also important to the automakers as well because it is a massive profit center. In fact, according to a study, the most expensive luxury automakers, so the ones with the $500,000 plus price range, are seeing margin increases of between 20 and 35% after the pandemic. And this is in large part due to these highly customized, higher price point vehicles. The adoption of electric vehicles has also been proven to be a way for automakers to increase their price range as well. And this is abundantly clear with automakers like Hummer, Rivian, Cadillac, Mercedes, and more. And so over the last couple of years, the selection of these types of high-end luxury cars has become larger, the price point has become higher, and the margin and profitability has increased as well. Now, I know what you may be thinking. We're currently talking about automakers like Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and more. These are automakers that have always sold expensive cars, so of course today they're selling a price point that's above $100,000. But over the last couple of years, there has also been a rise in normal, everyday cars that are also priced above $100,000. For example, there are now a wide variety of different models of cars that are offered by normal automakers like Ford, GM, Toyota, Jeep, and more that are priced well above $100,000. Like the Ford F-150 Lightning's highest trim model starts at $94,000, but you can easily surpass this with additional options. Cadillac Escalade, which is advertised as starting at just over $80,000, but a quick inspection will reveal that a new Escalade will cost you well over $100,000, or the Hummer EV, which starts at $108,000. And one of the more ridiculous examples being the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, which starts at $91,000 but are more commonly sold for between $105,000 and $120,000. The truth is, if you want a nice car nowadays, specifically a nice larger SUVs, the reality of paying $100,000 for that is becoming much more common, which is crazy. And well, if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, who the heck is buying all of these cars? And the answer is actually really interesting. According to Global Data, which is a data analytics firm based out of London, Americans with a household income of less than $50,000 make up about 27% of all regular luxury consumers. And to give you a bit of a comparison, 27% of luxury consumers are also people that make over $150,000 per year. So the amount of people that buy luxury goods who make over $150,000 is about the same as the amount of people who buy them that make less than $50,000. Now, when it comes to automakers specifically, it is a bit harder to gauge that because automakers don't really release the average income of their customers. But according to Hedges & Company, a digital agency out of Ohio, they found that the average household income of a BMW buyer is about $124,800 per year. At the same time, the average cost of a luxury car is about $74,000 according to early 2023 data. And again, it is hard to estimate this data accurately because most automakers don't release how much their cars are selling for on average or how much their average consumer base makes. But we can use some basic math to determine how much luxury car buyers should be making. Currently, the average monthly car payment is about $733 per month. And if we take into account basic personal financial principles, we can conclude that this type of buyer should be bringing home $7,300 per month in their income. This would equate to roughly $125,000 per year salary before taxes. Now, this should be what the average American car buyer is making, but in reality, this is actually more than double what the average American brings home. If you were to want to buy the average luxury car, which like I mentioned earlier, costs about $74,000, you would have to have a salary of about $165,000 in order to comfortably afford that. And well, if you wanted to buy a car that was in the ultra high-end luxury space that cost more than $500,000 to purchase, you would have to be making more than $1 million per year in order to justify that purchase. And according to the World Economic Forum, less than 0.5% of US households make $1 million per year or more. In fact, some estimates show that it could be as little as less than 0.25% of American households that are making this much. And so I guess my original question still stands. Who's buying all of these cars? But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.